The simplicity of taking picture nowadays is overlooked by all.
With golden stream, our universe was clothed in light. Pulling at the seam.
Rarely do we realize how blessed we are to literally have the power in our hands to capture a moment in time. Like that time you and your friend went on a new adventure, or that time your family got together after being separated for countless years, or that time where your beautiful baby was born.
Every time we open up our eyes,
The opportunity of having the power to take a picture at any moment or time, just with a quick snap from our phone, is one we should never take for granted, because it has been a long road and journey for those who brought this blessing into our lives.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
The year credited with the invention of photography is 1839, when it was first used by the scientist Sir John F. W. Herschel. Photography was a huge step for all, because the only way of getting a portrait was through talented painters. There was a big demand for portraits from painters with the rise of the middle class in the Western Europe area, that painters started to create methods in response of the demands. These methods include camera lucida, the silhouette machine, and the camera obscura. These inventions led to the emergence of photography. Joseph Nips is credited with producing the first permanently fixed photographic image in 1826. The 8-hour exposure rendered a view of the surrounding buildings, courtyard, and at least one tree as seen from Nips' upstairs bedroom. This experiment led to the collaboration between Nips and Louis Daguerre that resulted in the creation of the daguerreotype. Daguerreotypes were the forerunners to our modern film. To create the image on the plate, the earlier daguerreotypes had to be exposed to light for up to 15 minutes. The daguerreotype was very popular until it was replaced in the late 1850s by the emulsion plates. Emulsion plates, or wet plates, were less expensive than the daguerreotypes and took only 2 or 3 seconds of exposure time. This made them much more suited to the portrait photography, which was the most common photography at the time. It was during this time that bellows were added to cameras to help with focusing. Photography was only for professionals or the very rich until George Eastman started a company called Kodak in the 1880s. Eastman created a flexible roll film that did not require the constant changing of solid plates. This allowed him to develop a self-contained box camera that held 100 exposures of film. This was the first camera inexpensive enough for the average person to afford. The film was still large in comparison to today's film. It took until the 1940s for film to become cheap enough for most people to afford. Around 1930, Henry Cartier-Bresson and other photographers began to use small cameras to capture images of life as it occurred rather than staged portrait shots. When World War II started in 1939, many photojournalists adopted this style. These images showed the reality of war across the ocean and opened the eyes of the American people like never before. This style of capturing moments shaped the face of photography forever. At the same time cameras were becoming popular, Polaroid introduced the Model 95. Model 95 used a secret chemical process to develop film inside the camera in less than a minute. This new camera was fairly expensive, but the novelty of instant images caught the public's attention. By the mid-1960s, Polaroid had many models on the market, and the price had dropped so that even more people could afford it. While the French introduced the permanent image, the Japanese brought easy control of their images to the photographer. In the 1950s, Asahi, which later became Pentax, introduced the Asahi Flex, and the Nikon introduced its Nikon F camera. These were both SLR-type cameras, and the Nikon F allowed for the interchangeable lenses and other accessories. For the next 30 years, SLR-type cameras remained the camera of choice, and many improvements were introduced to both the cameras and the film itself. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, compact cameras that were capable of making image control decisions on their own were introduced. These point-and-shoot cameras calculated shutter speed, aperture, and focus, leaving photographers free to concentrate on composition. While these cameras became immensely popular with casual photographers, professionals and serious amateurs continued to prefer to make their own adjustments to image control. In the 1980s and 1990s, numerous manufacturers worked on cameras that stored images electronically. The first of these were point-and-shoot cameras that used digital media instead of film. By 1991, Kodak had produced the first digital camera advanced enough to be used successfully by professionals. Other manufacturers quickly followed, and today Canon, Nikon, Pentax, and other manufacturers all offer advanced digital SLR cameras. Even the most basic point-and-shoot camera now takes higher quality images than NIP's pewter plate.